Hello, students, and welcome back. From this lesson onward, we'll start designing graphic elements for real-world graphic design projects. This lesson will introduce you to additional tools and techniques, helping you expand and sharpen your skills. We'll begin by creating a simple abstract flower ornament. Through this project, you'll learn how to use grids, the transform and align panels, the color panel, and how to apply opacity to achieve unique design effects. To start, create an A4 size document. Since you're already familiar with document setup, go ahead and set it up. Then, hold down the Control or Command key and press the double quotation mark key on your keyboard to activate the grid. Grids are a set of evenly spaced lines on the canvas that help structure and align elements precisely within your design. They act as an invisible guide, making it easier to keep objects in balance and harmony, which is essential for professional-looking designs. In most design software, including Adobe Illustrator, the grid has a default measurement set to 1-inch intervals, which is further subdivided into smaller segments. For instance, each main grid line is spaced 1 inch apart, or 72 points. Each inch is divided into smaller units, usually 8 subdivisions, providing finer alignment options within each inch. These defaults create a flexible framework, allowing you to align elements precisely within both large and small segments. All right, let's start designing the abstract flower element in the simplest way, using tools and techniques to make it precise and efficient. First, go to the View menu at the top. Scroll down to find the Snap to Grid option and make sure it's turned on. This setting will automatically snap the anchor points of shapes to the nearest grid line, ensuring that your design stays perfectly aligned with the grid, allowing for precise and symmetrical drawing. With Snap to Grid enabled, your shapes will follow the grid lines as you draw, making the process smooth and helping you achieve accuracy. Let's proceed and apply this to create the flower shape. All right, let's use this portion of the grid to draw the first half of the flower petal. Start by selecting the Curvature tool. Set the fill color to None and keep the stroke color as black with the default settings in the options bar. Now we'll begin on this main grid line, adding the first anchor point here. From there, skip 2 horizontal grids and 3 vertical grids, and click to add the second anchor point right here. Next, skip another 2 horizontal grids and place the third anchor point on the grid here. To create a straight line for the final section, double-click back on the main grid line. Finally, double-click the starting anchor point to close and complete the first half of the flower petal. Now let's make it easier to draw the entire flower abstract by using this single graphic element. This is one of the amazing features of Illustrator. You don't have to draw each part of your artwork from scratch. Instead, you can duplicate this element to complete the design. First, press the V key to activate the Selection tool and ensure the object is selected. Press Ctrl-Command-C to copy the object, then Ctrl-Command-F to paste a duplicate directly on top of the current object. Avoid repeating this step, as that would create multiple duplicates. With the Selection tool, if I drag the element, you'll see there's now a duplicate. I'll press Ctrl-Z or Command-Z to place it back in its original location. Now I want to flip this duplicated object horizontally, using one of the right side reference points. To do this, open the Transform panel, activate one of the right side reference points, then go to the More Options menu and select Flip Horizontal. Looking at the petal now, you'll notice it consists of 2 separate elements. To combine these as a single object, first select both objects together. Next, open the Pathfinder panel. This panel provides quick and flexible options for various design tasks. Since we want to merge these 2 elements, click the Unite option. This will join them into a single, unified object. There you go. This method is a great way to streamline your design process and create intricate elements quickly. Now, let's create another copy directly above it. Press Ctrl-C or Command-C, then press Ctrl-F or Command-F. This time, I want to flip the duplicated petal element vertically from its bottom reference point. To do this, ensure the petal is selected, then open the Transform panel. Activate the bottom reference point, go to the More Options menu, and select Flip Vertical. Now, select both elements with the Selection tool and press Ctrl-G or Command-G to group them. Let's create another copy of these grouped elements above them by repeating the same duplication steps. This time, I'll rotate the duplicated object from its midpoint. Activate the middle reference point, then rotate the object by 90 degrees. Once again, select the entire object and group it. Finally, fill the graphic element with royal blue and remove the stroke color. Now let's create another duplicate by pressing Ctrl+C and Ctrl+F. Rotate this new object from its center by 45 degrees and fill it with magenta. Next, duplicate the magenta object above it, then rotate it by 22.5 degrees and change its color to cyan. Now let's make another duplicate of the cyan object, and this time flip it horizontally from its midpoint. To enhance the abstract design, let's add a transparent effect to the colors by adjusting the opacity in the control panel. First, select the cyan elements, holding the Shift key to select them together. Then set the opacity to 70% or whichever percentage you prefer. In the same way, select the magenta elements and set their opacity to 80%. You'll notice a subtle and elegant effect appearing in the overlapping flower petals. Let's continue refining the design with these techniques to bring out even more detail. Before proceeding, let's select all the elements and press Ctrl+G or Command+G to group them. Now I'm going to add a small circle shape to the center of our flower design. Here's how to do that. First, select the Ellipse tool, then click directly on the artboard. This will open a dialog box allowing us to create a precise circle. Enter an 8 by 8 millimeter dimension for the circle and hit OK. Now, to align this circle perfectly in the center of the flower, we'll use the Align panel. Here's how. First, select both the grouped flower object and the circle with the Selection tool. Ensure the flower elements are grouped before continuing with these steps. Next, open the Align panel. Since we want the circle aligned precisely in the center of the flower, we'll set the flower object as our key object. To do this, click on the flower design once. You'll notice a thicker selection outline around it, and the Align to Key Object option becomes active in the Align to section. This means the circle will align to the flower as intended. Now click on both the Horizontal Align Center and Vertical Align Center options. Once done, click outside the objects to deselect, and you'll see that the circle is centered perfectly in the flower design. Finally, select the circle and fill it with a white color. Likewise, the Align panel can be used to align objects within the artboard or within a selection. You can download the accompanying notes to explore these additional alignment options and familiarize yourself with them. Now, let's further refine this design to add extra detail to the middle section of our flower. This time, we'll add some additional petals to enhance the central design. Select the Curvature tool, set the fill color to white, and ensure the stroke color is black. Follow along with my video and try to draw another petal shape using the grid as a guide. I'll use 8 subdivisions to create this petal. Begin at this starting point, skip 2 vertical subgrids to place the second anchor point, skip another 2 grids to add the third anchor point, then add the fourth anchor point here, and finally, double-click on the starting anchor point to complete the shape. Next, activate the Selection tool and align the petal with the center circle as shown. Once aligned, you can remove the stroke color, as it's not necessary at this point. For the next step, let's duplicate the petal. Press Ctrl or Command-C, then Ctrl or Command-F to paste in place. Open the Transform panel, select the bottom reference point, and choose Flip Vertical from the Options menu. Now select both petals and group them. Before creating additional duplicates, we'll reduce the opacity to 70% in the control bar. This ensures all subsequent petals are at the same opacity level. Make a duplicate above, set the center point in the Transform panel, and rotate it by 90 degrees. Then, select all petals, hold Shift to select them, and group them again. Make one final duplicate and rotate it by 45 degrees from the Transform panel. And there we have it. Finally, let's add some small circles around the flower to enhance the design further. Use the subdivision grids to place and align these tiny circles precisely around the flower for a balanced, harmonious look. Once you've positioned all the circles, select the entire design and group it so it functions as a single graphic element. This final touch brings unity to your design, giving it a polished and complete look. Let's now focus on creating this badge abstract using additional tools and techniques. Through this exercise, you'll explore how to work with the Star tool, Gradient panel, Swatches panel, and Color panel. To begin, press Ctrl double quote to hide the grids. Then, go to the View menu and turn off Snap to Grid, as we'll proceed without grid support for the remaining elements. Start by selecting the Star tool from the Shape presets. Set the Fill color to None and the Stroke color to Black. For this task, let's use inches as the unit of measurement. Right-click on the ruler and select Inches. Now click on the page to access the Star options. Enter 1 inch in the Radius 1 field, 0.85 inches in the Radius 2 field, and set the points to 35, then click OK. To clarify the settings, Radius 1 refers to the distance from the center point to the outermost tips of the star, while Radius 2 is the distance to the inner points. The point setting defines the number of star tips, which can be adjusted based on your design needs. With the shape selected, press V to activate the Selection tool. Then press A for the Direct Selection tool. You'll notice adjustable corner radius handles on each point of the star. Slightly drag one of these handles to soften the corners for a refined look. Next, draw an inner circle and align it precisely at the center of the star. Select the Ellipse tool, then click on the page and enter 1.5 inches as the circle's diameter. To center align the circle within the star, pick the Selection tool, select both objects, and click on the star shape again to designate it as the key object. Open the Align panel, then select Horizontal Align Center and Vertical Align Center to position the circle in the center of the star shape. Let's continue refining the badge by adding an additional star and a ribbon element for a more intricate design. First, let's draw another star at the center of the circle. Select the Star tool again, click on the page, and set Radius 1 to 0.25 inches and Radius 2 to 0.125 inches, with the point set to 5. Click OK to create this smaller star shape. Next, activate the Selection tool. Hold down the Shift key and select the circle shape so that both the circle and the new star are selected. Click on the circle again to make it the key object and open the Align panel. Choose Horizontal Align Center and Vertical Align Center to position the star precisely at the center of the circle. With the main part of the design nearly complete, let's add a ribbon to finish the composition. Select the Rectangle tool from the toolbar and click on the page. Enter 0.25 inches for the width and 1.125 inches for the height, then click OK to add the rectangle. Ensure the rectangle is selected, then activate the Pen tool by pressing P on your keyboard. Zoom in slightly, then add a new anchor point at the intersection of the path as shown. Next, press A to switch to the Direct Selection tool. Select this new anchor point and drag it slightly upwards to create a tapered end on the rectangle, shaping it like a ribbon. Now, activate the Selection tool and drag the ribbon shape to align it with the star. Rotate it as needed to achieve the right angle and use the arrow keys to fine-tune its position. Once aligned, duplicate the ribbon by holding down the Alt or Option on Mac key and dragging it. Release the mouse button first, then release the Alt key, positioning the duplicated ribbon shape to create a symmetrical look on the opposite side. This completes the ribbon design. Now let's begin to fill these elements with colors. This time, we'll use the Gradient panel to apply colors. Before that, I'm going to trim the small star from the circle. This is because when I fill a color on the big star, the color transition might be visible through the small star. To do this, select both the circle shape and the smaller star. Since I want to trim the star from the circle, I'll use the minus front option in the Pathfinder panel. So, open the Pathfinder panel and click minus front. Let me highlight an important point. When you work with Pathfinder options, remember that you should only select two compound shapes, with one shape overlapping the other. Only then will these options work effectively. Now, I'm going to fill this object with a gradient. Make sure to select the shape first. If you want to fill this shape, you need to activate the Fill option in the Gradient panel. Then, select the Base Gradient Color option from the Gradient menu. Typically, you can use this black and white gradient option to fill the selected shape. You can also decide on the gradient type, such as linear, radial, or freeform. Linear is active by default. If you select radial, you'll see a different gradient style. Additionally, if needed, you can adjust the aspect ratio, for example, setting it to 50%, and change the angle values to create a radial gradient with varying angles. The default values are an angle of 0 and an aspect ratio of 100%. If you choose a linear gradient, you'll only be able to change the angle. I'll stick with the linear gradient and keep the angle at 0. Now, if I want to change the gradient color, I can use the gradient slider. Below the gradient slider, you'll find 2 color stops by default. Each color stop has a specific location, which you can see in the location field for the selected color stop. By dragging these stops, you can adjust their positions. I'll set them to their default locations. If I want to change the color of a selected color stop, I can double-click it, choose a color from the swatches panel, and, if further adjustment is needed, refine it in the color panel. Using these sliders, I can adjust the color tones, or I can pick a color using the color picker. For instance, to darken the red, I can increase the black value on the K slider to around 60 to 70%. Similarly, I'll set the same red color for the other color stop. Double-click, set it to red in the swatches panel, and adjust the tone between 60 to 70% in the color panel. If I want to add additional colors to the current gradient, I can simply click below the gradient slider to add more color stops. I can double-click these stops and follow the same steps to change the colors. If I need to delete a color stop, I can just drag it outside the gradient panel. In this case, I'll set one color stop exactly at the center of the gradient slider by setting its location to 50%. I'll then change this stop's color to a pure red using the swatches panel. Now, if you look at the design, there's a smooth transition in the red gradient. You'll also notice that the small star isn't filled with the gradient since it was trimmed from the circle shape. However, I don't want to keep a stroke color, so I'll go ahead and remove the stroke color from the control bar. Next, let's try to fill a gradient for the larger star shape. You can select it with the selection tool, then open the gradient panel. Click on the slider. This time, let's fill it with a complementary color. Double-click the left side color stop, toggle to the swatch panel, and fill it with this orange color. Then, fill the same orange color for the right side color stop. For the middle color stop, let's fill it with a slightly deeper orange color. Now, if I want to apply a gradient to the stroke, I simply click here to activate the stroke option first. Then click on the gradient slider, and to make it more effective, I'll rotate the gradient to 90 degrees. Finally, I want to fill these 2 ribbon elements with the same red color gradient. To do that, select the ribbon elements first, then press the I key to activate the eyedropper tool. Click on the red-colored circle to sample the same color gradient for the ribbon elements. The ribbon elements also need to be placed behind the other shape elements. To do that, make sure the ribbon elements are selected, then press Ctrl-Shift or Command-Shift to send them backward. Now, activate the Selection tool, select all design elements, and press Ctrl-G or Command-G to group them together. Now let's say I want to edit the color of the larger star. I can double-click to isolate the objects within the grouped element. Then, if I want to change the center color stop to white, I can go ahead and make that adjustment in the gradient panel. To exit isolation mode, simply press the S key on your keyboard. There we go. Before moving on to draw the next element, let me arrange these graphic elements on my page to keep them looking tidy. Okay, now let's focus on designing this planet. As we work through this, you'll learn how to use the gradient mesh and some additional options in the Pathfinder panel. Go ahead and pick the ellipse tool. Make sure the fill color is white and the stroke color is set to none in the control bar. Click on the page, then create a circle with a 1-inch diameter and click OK. Now activate the selection tool. Since I want to apply a gradient mesh, I'll use the freeform gradient option in the gradient panel. Keep in mind that the freeform option only works for the fill color. Once freeform is applied, you'll see color stops appear within the object. You can double-click each stop to change its color using either the swatches panel or the color panel. You can also move each color stop to adjust its location as needed. By clicking inside the object, you can add additional color stops, and there is no limit to the number of stops you can add. To delete a color stop, simply drag it away from the object. Based on that technique, I've created a mesh with color stops to give a simple 3D look and globe effect. Pause the video now and try creating your own mesh by following the previous steps. Once you've completed the mesh, simply activate the selection tool to apply it. Let's say you want to edit the mesh again. Select the object with the selection tool, open the gradient panel, make sure the fill option is active, then click the Edit Gradient button to unlock the color stops for further editing. In this case, I'm not going to make any changes, so I'll activate the current mesh by pressing the V key. Make sure to deselect the current object by clicking outside of it before proceeding to the next step. Next, I'll draw rings around the globe shape. To start, pick the Ellipse tool, then draw an ellipse with a width of 1.5 inches and a height of 0.25 inches. Press the V key to activate the selection tool, then select both objects. I want to center align the ellipse with the globe shape. To do this, click again on the globe to set it as the key element. Then open the Align panel and click on Horizontal Align Center and Vertical Align Center. Now, click away from the objects to deselect them, and then select only the ellipse shape. Press Ctrl-C or Command-C and then Ctrl-F or Command-F to make a duplicate above it. Open the Transform panel, ensure the Constrain Width and Height Proportions option is enabled, and make sure the center reference point is active. In the Width field, enter 1.25 inches and press the Tab key. Since we enabled proportional constraints, the height will adjust automatically. Next, select both ellipse shapes together, open the Pathfinder panel and click -front. Fill this shape with a light brown color and remove the stroke color. Now, make another duplicate of this filled ellipse. Press Ctrl-C or Command-C, and then Ctrl-F or Command-F again. In the Transform panel, set the width to 2 inches and press the Tab key to maintain the proportions. Make another duplicate of the newly created oval shape above it by using the same shortcut keys. Then set the width to 2.625 inches in the Transform panel. There we go. We now have the rings ready. To make them look as if they're circling the globe, we'll use a clever method to bring this art to life. First, deselect any selected objects. Then, pick the Rectangle tool, fill it with a contrasting color like cyan or magenta, and position it to overlap the intersecting part of the last oval shape. Since Smart Guides are on, you should see a magenta non-printable line that indicates the intersecting path. Draw a rectangle to cover the upper portion of the design elements as I demonstrate in the video. Activate the Selection tool, then select only the rectangle and the ellipses, making sure not to select the globe. Next, open the Pathfinder panel. This time, click the Divide option to divide the selected elements. Right-click the object and select Ungroup. Now I can delete the unwanted graphic elements to achieve the desired look. Click outside the group to deselect everything, then follow my demonstration to delete the elements as shown in the video. There we go. Now select only the blue elements and press Ctrl-Shift or Command-Shift on Mac to send them to the back. Then select the first ellipse and change its fill to a light brown. Next, select the second ellipse and apply a slightly darker brown. Finally, select the third ellipse and set it to an even darker brown. Now select the entire object and group them by pressing Ctrl-G or Command-G on Mac. Lastly, rotate the whole object slightly counterclockwise to create a realistic, charming planet effect, just like one from the solar system. There we go. Finally, let's focus on how to draw this abstract clock element. While drawing this, you can further expand your skill set with the Pathfinder panel, including the Offset Path option. I'll start by using the Ellipse tool again. Make sure the fill color is set to none and the stroke color is black. Click on the page and let's create a 1-inch diameter circle. Next, make a duplicate above it by pressing Ctrl-C or Command-C on Mac, then press Ctrl-F or Command-F on Mac. Open the Transform panel, ensure the center reference point is active, and check that the proportion link is on. Now, go ahead and change the size of the duplicated circle to 0.75 inches. Select both circles and click -front in the Pathfinder panel. Then fill the shape with yellow and remove the stroke color. Then click outside of the object to deselect it. Next, select the Rectangle tool. Set the fill color to None, and select a black stroke color from the Control panel. Position your mouse pointer in the middle of the circle shape, then draw a square shape, as I am demonstrating here. Now, activate the Selection tool and select both elements. I'll crop a part of this circle, so open the Pathfinder panel again and click -front. Select the Ellipse tool again. This time, set the fill color to black and remove the stroke color. Click on the page and create another circle with a 1-inch diameter. Next, using the Selection tool, select both the black circle and the yellow shape. Click on the yellow object to make it the key object. Open the Align panel and use the alignment options to perfectly align the black circle on top of the yellow object. Now remove the current selection and select the black circle and send Hit Behind. Then deselect the black circle. Now, pick the Rectangle tool. Change its fill color to any other color, such as blue. Draw 2 rectangles precisely to divide the circle into a quarter section. Activate the Selection tool, select both rectangles, open the Pathfinder panel, and click Unite to combine them. Now select the circle and the united rectangles together, then choose -front from the Pathfinder panel. Next, select the quarter circle. Go to the Object menu, navigate to Path, and choose Offset Path. The Offset Path option creates a new shape by expanding or contracting the original path by a specified distance. When you apply this to an object, it generates an outline that follows the shape's path at the set offset distance. This is useful for creating layered effects, borders, or additional shapes that are proportionally larger or smaller than the original. For instance, if you offset a path outward, you get a larger version of the shape around it. If inward, it becomes a smaller shape within the original. I'm going to set a 1.5mm offset path for the selected object and click OK. Now hold the Shift key and select the yellow object as well. Open the Pathfinder panel and click -front. Next, remove the selection. Select the quarter circle and make a duplicate of it above. Use Ctrl-C and Ctrl-F to duplicate, then change its color to yellow from the Control panel. Deselect. Now pick the Ellipse tool again. Set the fill color to None and the stroke color to black with a stroke weight of 2 points. Click on the page and create a 0.85-inch circle. Activate the Selection tool and select both the new circle and the yellow pie shape. Click on the pie again to make it the key object. Then, from the Align panel, use the alignment options to center the circle on the pie. Deselect, then select the black outline circle. Make a duplicate above it using Ctrl-C and Ctrl-F. Open the Transform panel, ensuring the center point is active and the proportion link is on. Make sure the Scale Corners and Scale Strokes and Effects options are unchecked. Set the size to 0.7 inches. Create another duplicate of the newly created circle above it and change the size to 0.55 inches. Duplicate the circle once more and adjust the size to 0.4 inches. Hold Shift and select all the circles you've drawn. Go to the Object menu and choose Expand. This will convert the stroke to a filled object. Ensure both fill and stroke options are checked, then click OK. Hold Shift and select the yellow quarter circle. Open the Pathfinder panel and click -front. Right-click on the yellow quarter circle and select Ungroup. Deselect everything, then select only the unwanted part and press Delete. Lastly, draw 2 small rectangles as shown on my screen, overlapping the pie shape. Select them along with the pie element, and in the Pathfinder panel, click -front. Then right-click and choose Ungroup. Make sure to select them by clicking outside the object. With the Shift key held down, select both elements and change their fill color to black. There we go. In this lesson, you've learned simple methods to create graphic elements at your fingertips. Go ahead and try drawing this location icon using the techniques you've practiced. Now move on to the next lesson to learn how to create digital pencil sketches and explore more tracing options in Illustrator.